All right, I want to get started on some of these prediction markets and polling. So a new poll out today. We're going to discuss it. It's out of Pennsylvania. But before we get to that, I'm watching something at Polymarket, another one of our sponsors, and they are sort of kind of right on the cusp of what's going on because they have a prediction market that actually uses crypto and blockchain technology to settle some of the trades. Whole other discussion we'll have to have sometime because I actually find that in and of itself pretty darn fascinating. CME, watch out. Anyway, Polymarket, if you look at what's going on there, you see that Donald Trump is increasing his odds, his chances, pretty significantly. This is since September 19th. Okay, look at that chart. That's like what I would like for a stock chart. By the way, Rob Horton's going to be coming on momentarily from 76 Research. He's going to talk about all this upside in the market today. He's going to talk about things like tariffs, right? And the lack of policy that we got there out of Kamala Harris. But before we get to that, just look at that 49% chance. He's up 2%. So again, it's the kind of graph that you like to see. Nonetheless, he's still at this point behind by 1 point. It is super tight. You're talking Kamala Harris at 50, Donald Trump at 49. Part of the reason why I think he hasn't actually topped her here, and don't forget, this is real money. Right? Like people have real money on the line. When you're talking about putting a wager down in this prediction market, you will lose your shirt if you're not right. And so I find these very interesting to watch. And they sort of complement what's going on in the poll cycle. I mean, it's one thing to tell a pollster something. It's another thing to put your dollars to work. And so these are people that really don't have an axe to grind or, a dog in this fight, as they say. They're just investors that are betting on the outcome of the election. And so that's what makes these betting markets really, really unique. And sometimes they can run a little ahead of the polls. Sometimes they can run slightly behind the polls. Sometimes they're just dead on. I think when you look at this number today, one of the things that they're taking into consideration is not just, say, the Quinnipiac poll, which was great. This one came out just the other day. Do you see this? Trump, 48%, Harris, 47%. So Trump is ahead by 1. If you compare and contrast Quinnipiac to what Trump and Biden were doing back in 2020 at the same particular time, you saw that Biden back then was up 10. Trump was at 41% versus Biden, 51%. So I think this is quite telling and quite interesting, right, in the scheme of things. And so that's one thing you got to watch. We've got some other polls where you have, for example, the New York Times poll, and they're tied. That's really interesting. And we have this poll where you see the Sun Belt is something that Donald Trump is certainly expected to win, and that's the New York Times as well. But this one came out today. And so this may be giving some investors some pause when you look at the prediction markets. There's a mammoth poll poll out that came out just today, and it's on Pennsylvania, and it shows Harris 3 points ahead. But you know what? I don't totally buy this poll, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, go back to 2016. And there was this expectation that, Hillary had places like Pennsylvania locked up, and you look at some of the polling data, and it was thought to be that she had it totally locked up. Similar to what you're seeing here on Monmouth, with Harris up 3 points. Actually, I don't even think it was as close as that. But the reality is this: I don't think people actually want to say, and especially in states like Pennsylvania or in Wisconsin or Michigan, I don't think they're always so comfortable saying who they're going to vote for. Right? The party line is that you got to vote for Kamala. Kamala is the be all end all. She's going to, turn the page and make everything great again. And God help you if you support Trump. You couple that together with the reality that, you know what, guys? People don't really like to share their personal beliefs with a pollster, especially a pollster on a recorded line. So that's the deal these days. People are on recorded lines. And I told you this story recently about a friend who got a phone call from a pollster, and she was all ready to talk. And then all of a sudden the pollster said, "Hey, I'm on a recorded line." And she's like, "Click, I'll see you later," right? I don't need to be on record in light of big data, et cetera, et cetera. I know some of you are fine with it. I've looked at your comments and you're like, "Oh, I'll go on record any day." And that's great. But not everybody is like that. And I think you find a lot more in terms of shy voting population within the Trump arena than you're going to find within the Kamala arena. And so you got to consider all of this. One of the most interesting things that we had coming out of Quinnipiac recently, and that was a national poll showing that Donald Trump was beating, let me go back to that for a moment, is beating Kamala Harris 48-47. If you look at this, one of the things that I found pretty fascinating was the Hispanic population. And a lot of people thought after that debate and after he made the comments about Ohio that you would start to see Hispanics start to shift towards Harris, and that's not happening. Look at this. He's way ahead of Harris with Hispanics. 52-54%. So I find that incredibly interesting as well. Let's take a look at this Atlas Intel poll that came out rather recently, again, showing him higher. You have CNN showing they're kind of in a deadlock. Harris is up 1 point. If you're only up 1 point against Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you can't even win the night on MSNBC. This is, hey, I hate to be the realist, but I always am. And it does come down to one thing and one thing only. And she was not able to explain herself in any way, shape, or form with Stephanie Ruhle last night on MSNBC. It comes down to the economy. That was her chance. That was her opportunity to articulate her proposals and ideas. And she failed. And so it goes back to this, as the CNN anchors were forced to admit.
On issue number one, you mentioned Donald Trump going down to Georgia today. Take a look at Trump's advantage on the economy. 50% of likely voters say they trust him to handle the economy more than Harris. Only 39% of likely voters say so of Harris, again, on issue number one.
I mean, it is really stunning if you think about these numbers. 20% more of voters say that they are worried about the economy, and that's their number one issue more than anybody else. And look at his lead on this.
Aha. Economy. Again, you know what? If you're worried about the economy, you need to think about diversification. You might want to think about investing in gold. You can call our friends over at American Hartford Gold, 1-844-495-1115. You can get up to $15,000 worth of free silver with this offer if you use my name. You can text Trish to 65532. Text Trish to 65532 or go to trishlovesgold.com. trishlovesgold.com. Hey, have you guys seen this whole story about the New York City mayor? I want to get to that too coming up. I mean, we got to talk about that. But, before I do, back to the polls for a moment. Look at this. This is Gallup. Okay, so this is Gallup back in 2008, 2012, 16, 20, 24. Gallup actually has a pretty good track record, a decent track record of being able to give you sort of the overall landscape on who's running ahead based on party. So based on party, if you go back to 2008, and given sort of what's going on economically speaking, they have a whole bunch of different metrics that they look at. They can tell you which party is most favored. And they've been historically pretty darn accurate. With Obama winning, they said that the Democrat advantage went up 8 and Obama came in up 7.2. You had really spot on in 2012. They thought the Democrat advantage was 4, and sure enough, Obama came in up 3.9. In 2016, they got it wrong. They thought that Democrats overall would win. Clinton had, going into that, an advantage of 2.1 points. And of course, she lost. 2020, different. They thought that the Democrats were winning, so to speak, in terms of the issues. And sure enough, Biden went to the Oval Office. But look at 2024. Guess who's winning now, guys? Guess who? It's actually the Republicans, up 3. So the question now becomes, does that translate? I suspect it does. I think that that's sort of the wind at his back, so to speak, which gives him the advantage. Donald Trump, the advantage. But I mean, heck, when you're up against this.
And assistance to state and local governments around transit dollars. And looking holistically at the connection between that and housing. And looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing.
I'm sorry. I know I've played that a few too many times, but I just honestly can't believe it. I can't believe that this is the first possible woman president. She's the vice president of the United States, and she can't actually talk other than say holistically. So if the polls are this bad, and they are, if the ratings are this bad, and they are, Oprah, I mean, actually, I think that we do better on a live show on this little channel than they actually did in their live show with Oprah. I mean, that's amazing, right? So those ratings were terrible. They only had 300,000 people tuning in live to see that whole ordeal. And then you look at what happened. Laura Ingraham doesn't have Kamala Harris on her show, and she's beating them by a country mile, 2.2 million to 1.7 million for Kamala on MSNBC. So do they have something up their sleeve? This is something that came up to me recently. I spoke with a very, very knowledgeable political insider in the Republican Party who said to me that he thought they might try something kind of desperate. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? His belief was, I wouldn't be surprised to actually see her going in as the president. And then they put her up in prime time, he said. And sure enough, she gets a big primetime speech because Joe's retiring early. They get a lot of attention for that. It's all on prompter, so she's able to kill it. And then Americans say, oh, you know what? She's already president. And they think that that will actually sort of gin up some excitement and support going into November. Because, hey, then after all, we'd have had our first woman president. Well, you couple that idea together with what James Carville recently said on CNN. He was quoted as saying, something tells me something else is going to happen. I don't know what it is, but the idea we've got 42 days to go now. It's less than that. It's like 39, 6 weeks. This is a sprint to the finish. I think there's another plot twist coming here. Another plot twist? So could that be it? Might they actually put her in as the first female president of the United States? I mean, she's checking off a lot of boxes. She's got Indian, she's got black, she's got female. Woo! I don't know, but they got to do something because it's not looking good.